This is Signal and Noise, bringing clarity to data, tech, and AI.
Hi, this is Rio Longacre here with Brett House, co-host for Signal and Noise podcast. We're with a special guest. We teased it up earlier. We didn't say who it would be, and it is the one and only Paskalis.
Hey, everybody.
We're in his suite here in the Cosmo, wrapping up CES.
58th floor with one of the most beautiful views I've seen.
Yeah, we were going to do it outside, but it's too windy.
So, Lou, great to see you. Love to maybe start by, I don't know if you need any introduction here. Maybe tell the viewers a quick blurb about yourself, and love to start, just get your thoughts on CES now that we're done.
Sure. So long time on the client side, American Express, more recently Bank of America. Then I ran a trade association, MMA Global for a while. And now I'm a single consultant here with about half dozen of my clients doing meetings and just participating in the zeitgeist of CES.
What are some key takeaways from, I can imagine, this is, I think, my 10th or 11th, and it's just evolved. And
So you're still a rookie?
Still a rookie, yeah. They got the rookie here. And I think this is how
I'm a real rookie. This is my first CES.
Oh my God, you must be like,
other industry events.
Yeah, you must be overwhelmed. Yeah.
So I love this event. It's one of my favorites. Love to hear kind of maybe your takeaways from this year, what it made it a little different from other years, what was exciting, et cetera.
Yeah. So, my big takeaway was this. People were coming and genuinely interested in collaborating. And what I mean by that is sometimes you get the surface level conversation or, it's very transactional. But I think with the rise of AGI and the likely complete reinvention of our go-to-market as marketers and even as publishers and platforms, people are trying to understand, what's your take on that? Yeah. When will AGI really take over? What's our role when it's actually providing the insights that I provide to my customer? Do we still have a role? What is it? And I think the answer is generally yes, generally good, but we got to get in front of it. So we've gone from this era where we were most recently, where we were bolting AI solutions onto our go-to-market, but not fundamentally changing how we did it, to now ripping that out and saying, all right, let's build AGI first. Let's make sure that the information is flowing to as many nodes in the enterprise that touch consumers and make sure we have a consistent voice where we can. I a lot of those conversations with clients in private spaces and also on stages. A lot of discussion about compliance and data compliance specifically, and the inherent risk that comes with AGI combining databases in ways that perhaps the permission didn't anticipate. And then all of a sudden, a company ends up athwart the law in a particular state. I'm thinking California. And who's liable? Yeah. What do we do about that? So there was a lot of that conversation.
Well, and AI does so well with managing unstructured data. We were talking about sort of the re-rise of probabilistic data, right? Which seemed to be, there was all this focus on first-party data and the quality of signal and identity data hygiene and resolution. Now it seems like you're building these semantic layers that can just suck in huge volumes of data that could be quantity over real quality, and you're allowing the agents who are kind of being instructed by that middleware to basically come up with high probability probabilistic outputs.
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah. I think what you're talking about is something that the industry calls digital twins. So if you're a major bank and you have 68 million customers, if you use their first party data, you have all sorts of risk. Right? Even if it's just perception risk, reputational risk. Oh, how are they using my data? But if I build digital twins using AI,
which is a synthetic,
it's 68 million synthetic customers.
Yeah.
That is absolutely, and then I can model off of that, right? I've heard that expression, digital twins or synthetic twins. I've heard that half a dozen times in the last 4 days.
Yeah.
It's incredibly valuable, and there's nothing wrong with it. You're not exploiting your customers, you're protecting their data, but you're also making the investment to actually deliver more relevant experiences, whether they're on your platform or on a third-party environment.
And without the risk of
With no
compliance and consumer identity data.
I don't
and
want
all
to say
this
no
stuff.
risk. There's risk in everything you do, but there's much less.
Yeah, and we were talking about how it's sort of that meta learning, when ATT came in and Meta was collecting all that mobile data, right? And I remember we used to see this when we had a startup like 25 years ago. I was like, oh my God, look at the access
It's
to the data. That we were a startup with like a couple of college kids.
Yeah, and it was just bleeding
and
out.
we could just see everybody's like their entire identity and flow, right? And then ATT came and Meta made the argument and proved it out that you could do this almost entirely synthetically,
right,
and still have the level of fidelity and
that's
accuracy.
what the big platforms are doing.
Yeah,
that's definitely what the big platforms are doing. So good conversations around that. And as you know, I'm a bit of a governance wonk.
Are brands, speaking of governments, are brands, do you think, getting more comfortable with the concept of using AI to generate content? I mean, there's a lot of discussion I got pulled to do about content supply chain.
It's a very big topic. So one of my best friends is an agent for many content creators. And we were talking about
not an agent in the artificial.
No, a human. I have a human best friend for now. And he lifelong entertainment industry executive, very accomplished. And we were talking about why there is this decline in a lot of the views and the revenue that's coming off of the major platforms like TikTok and Insta. So anyhow, the platforms have figured out that if they use AI creators or AI creative, they don't have to pay those creators a rev share. So now they're starting to prioritize non-human created content. And I was talking to Jeff Green about this thing yesterday, CEO and founder of Trade Desk. And he said, I'm not worried about it, Lou. 2026 is going to be the year of premium content. Yeah. Consumers are very quickly going to learn to recognize not just AI slop, but AI produced content that isn't as relevant and resonant to them. And they will pay a premium to creators who really build an authentic audience, who understand what that audience wants and delivers real value to them, right? So there is a big, first mover advantage. If you have 3 million or 10 million followers on Insta and TikTok, you've already got a baked in platform. It's going to be hard for, upstart folks who don't have that followership, who are competing against the AI juice, the AI created content that the platforms are juicing. So there's going to be a perception of premium for great content producers.
Yeah, and consumers are going to have this sort of discernment, right?
Yes.
And you're sort of leaving it to the competent consumer that can actually decipher between one or the other, and that the real premium content's going to win out inevitably over the slop.
Let me give you the benefit of having attended Shelley Palmer's amazing session yesterday at the C-Space that CES has. His last bullet point on his 6 priorities for 2026 are default to distrust. And that isn't
as a consumer,
but also as a marketer, right? Are we working with someone who really understands? Let's take the marketer side first. Are we working with a partner who really understands the risk in combining data signals that aren't permissioned that way? Are they governing in such a way that if the unanticipated thing happens, they detect it before the regulator does? Who pays for those fines, as I mentioned earlier, if there is a fine? Now, as the consumer, I think what we're talking about is a healthy level of skepticism. Yeah. I think it's just, we are like that. It goes back to Roman times, caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. Yeah. Let the consumer beware. Let them understand that, okay, this content is not human made. Maybe it has great value. Yeah. Maybe, I am one of the 30 million Perplexity users, not as I also have ChatGPT, and that has 800 or 900 million users. I like the way Perplexity answers the question. I sometimes am skeptical of it, but it gives me a great frame. And then I can go deeper into things that and I can validate with another platform. I think the consumer now is going to spend more time, and we have an expression that goes back to the early days of my career that I think will become very valuable here, called media pointillism. And in media pointillism, the idea was you would get a little bit of your news from CBS, and then you'd go to New York Times and read the same story, and then you'd go to NPR and listen to the same story. And you got you put those 3 dots together, like Surratt, right? And you would actually form your own view of the news. Is this the news story? What's the center of it?
Yeah.
I think we're going to do that at
The
scale.
truth is sort of coming together through multiple perspectives that might, in and of themselves, may not be true. May not
100%.
be-
Yeah,
Lou,
100%.
this interesting point too that you brought up, and I think that this gets back to the conversation we were having earlier. You're mentioning how like people want authenticity. They want to hear your opinion.
Yes.
Like you
Yeah.
have clients reaching out and saying, Lou, like, tell us, what do you think? I've seen this generally like this. I think maybe it's just there's so much AI slop. It's hard to discern what's real versus what's not, signal versus noise. And I'm seeing a return to that as well. People
Yeah.
want to hear authentic, real voices. And I think maybe like the fact that there's so much, garbage content out there, I think it's helping drive that. What do you think?
I think that's true. I think the one caveat I have to that is I also have this thesis, which is that people now trust individuals over institutions, right?
Yep.
Jim Acosta leaves CNN, and in 2 weeks has a bigger audience of subscribers to his podcast than CNN has on a daily basis, right? So at the same time that consumers are craving authenticity, they're actually going to individuals who they know, who they have a previous understanding of, and listening to them more than they are maybe to the platforms that they come from. There's a lot of reasons for that. We have a White House that is, questioning the mainstream media. We have people in general not liking the over-polished content that is maybe overproduced, but under insightful.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be a rise of individuals. I think what it's bad for though is young people coming up. Now there are all sorts of new creators who find their niche, but I think they're going to have to compete against, let's not call it AI slop, let's call it high quality AI content, but still not as trustworthy as human content. And they're going to have to find their niche when the platforms are probably going to prioritize that which is cheaper to promote, the AI created content versus the human created content.
Yeah, a topic that it was sort of earlier in our conversation is a topic that I've been certainly hearing a lot about is this notion of sort of GTM compression, right? So like as a brand, how are you able to decision faster, to turn around, whether it's a creative brief and development process, it could be a segmentation scheme, it could be a creative play, right? It could be more holistic than campaign level. But the idea is how do you actually test and optimize not just 1, 2, 3, 4 options, but dozens or hundreds of options, right? Which de-risks the decisioning process, helps them launch stuff that's more likely to succeed, and AI is powering a lot of that.
So there's a lot of good news here, and it's good for consumer and it's good for the business. It's what's happening is, before the rise of AI in a programmatic space, in a 30 millisecond round trip, we were seeing an audience signal, bidding on that audience signal, winning the bid, assembling the creative, trafficking the creative, and measuring it in 30 milliseconds. You can't blink your eye in 30 milliseconds, right? So we have bona fides there, but we had 4 or 5 pieces of creative that we were sort of putting together like rudimentary Legos. Now, with things like dynamic creative optimization and the AI-driven orchestration, not only do we have a better way to produce what I call end scale creative, and it's not really end scale, but it's hundreds, possibly thousands of pieces of creative. We actually can read the segments much better. So most segmentation in America is done by a consultancy every other year for a client, and it's binary, which means if you're in cell 3, you can't be in cell 5. Right. And most of us are in both, like cell 3 might be multi-homeowners and cell 5 might be world travelers. How many people at this table are in both those cells, right? So that was false, but it was an organizing principle. Now AI can do that. I have 2 clients, one of whom is GumGum. That's exactly what they do with their mindset targeting. It's all about understanding the mindset at the page level context or at the frame level context in CTV. So frame level, we're actually able to do that at frame level. There are other companies doing that where they're testing their way through it. My other client, Chalice, is using AI to really understand what wins. There are companies like Anoki, who I don't work with, who are, again, able to go to the most granular piece and achieve something that you've been hearing me say for 20 years, engineer relevance into every interaction. We win the war for attention when we engineer relevance into every interaction. And we now finally have the technology and the signal and the modality, the pipeline, the programmatic pipe to do that. And that will start outperforming the slop, the MFA, the very crappy ads that are being served today, because you're going to get an engagement rate that's not 0.06%, but might be 10%. Unheard of, but really, engineer relevance in every action should be the mantra for this year.
Lou, you've been a fierce advocate for news journalism, for
Yes, sir.
quality news journalism. Like, how do you like? There's been a lot of talk about the demise of the open web. We talked about this when you appeared in our podcast earlier about how like Google Zero decline referral traffic. It's making it challenging. Now, okay, a few months later, a couple of years into this AI thing, how are you feeling about, based on the trends you're seeing? Like, how are news publishers doing? How are you feeling about the future? Are you feeling maybe a little more confident today than you were?
I am optimistic in general for news. And here's why. The business case for news is incredibly compelling. Working with the trade desk and Jeff Green, we built a platform last year called News Navigator. And News Navigator has driven unbelievable case studies. Major financial services company, 70% reduction in cost of customer acquisition. 70, just by adding news, right? Major movie studio, 63% higher conversion rate. These numbers are unheard of. As a media buyer, on the client side, incredibly skeptical. So we're proving out, when you show those case studies, to media buyers, they're like, I want some of that. And, as we know from the study that Stagwell did, we talked about it on the pod, there's 14% unduplicated reach there. You can't reach people elsewhere. These are news junkies who only consume news when they're consuming media. So the story is good, and the empowered buyers are making the move. There are still too many people who say, I can get the same audience elsewhere without the risk. So we have to demonstrate, A, no, you can't get the same audience, and B, there is no risk. It is hand-to-hand combat. And I am working on that every day. This is my commitment. And I found a conspiracy of the willing, some major tech companies that I'm not allowed to share, some companies that are really just dedicated to driving more business to news, some individuals like Jeff Green, who just deeply understands news value to the democracy and our society. So it's 1942. And if you know what I mean by that, 1942 started with America on its back foot in World War II.
So the war started to turn. Yeah.
And at the end of 1942, America was on its front foot and we were winning. So we're at that fight, but we can't give up now. We can't give up now. And so what my goal for this year
You're
is
hopeful for the future of the open
I'm
web.
hopeful that we will. My number one
news.
goal this year is to get 100 major marketers who aren't advertising in news to actually do a test at some scale, $3 to $5 million campaign, where half goes into the campaign without news, and the other half goes into the same campaign but with news added. Have them learn it. Once they learn it, they'll apply it. If I can get 100 marketers to do that, then this will be a successful year from my personal perspective.
Well, Lou, it's been great having you on here. I mean, it's good to see you as always. And
Always.
appreciate the invite up here. I don't know if Brett has any other questions you wanted to ask.
No, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of it. So I think you seem bullish on news going forward, bullish on the open web. You're starting to see that agentic AI, some of the hype is starting to become reality.
Yeah.
Right, in a sense.
Just remember, we thought that the internet would kill the advertising business.
Yeah.
Then we thought mobile would kill the advertising business. Then we thought whatever the next thing was, right? And every time it's gotten stronger and it's gotten better.
Yeah.
I think it's going to make us more efficient. I think it's going to raise consumer expectations, but I don't think it's going to replace human intuition, which is what my business is, frankly, or human creative.
Yep.
It may augment it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a compounding effect that's only going to make us stronger in terms of our decisioning, in terms of our optimization, all this sort of stuff, right?
Spoken
We
like
talked about
spoken like a
It's
former
going to make us
banker.
better at
Yeah.
our jobs. It's going to, I think, free us up from doing work that maybe it's better automated.
Don't fear the tool, use the tool.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, with that,
Okay.
thanks again, Lou. This has been amazing. Great CES, and talk to everyone soon.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.